It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech, you're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live across the entire Mid-America region, hailing out of the center of the nation right here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard and across the entire Mid-America Network. We love having you aboard. Great to have you along on a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration has officially begun, which means, guess what? You, my friends, have seen the light at the end of the tunnel. You're ready to work towards the weekend, and a holiday weekend at that. Hopefully, many of you actually get tomorrow off, so maybe today might be actually your Friday. Might actually be the day you get to enjoy and have the last one to carpe diem, to be able to progress, be able to get everything done today so you can start enjoying the weekend come tomorrow. Welcome into it. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, lots to get to today. It's going to be a heck of a show as there are a lot of pieces of news floating around all over the place that we need to address. I did get to enjoy, if you got to listen last night, got to enjoy filling in for Armed American Radio. I'll be doing that again tonight. On KIUL and KQAM at 8 p.m. Looking forward to broadcasting that show tonight, so stay tuned in. It's a lot of fun being able to talk about some of the guns, the Second Amendment, and do that specifically, rather than trying to tie it in with the rest of the mainstream stuff. I want to start off today with this. And now, look, I'm a blonde. If you're watching TV, if you're watching the Facebook Live, you can tell that I'm a blonde, and sometimes I totally miss the boat. Sometimes it just goes right over my head. And I am totally the blonde in that sense, and I totally have my blonde moments, as many people do, but blondes, for whatever reason, predominant. Now, look, see, I'm attacking myself. I'm not a racist. I'm not a bigot. I'm not a closed mind, because it's okay if you apparently do that to blonde people because, well, I mean, we're probably the white privileged ones anyways. But I'm doing that to myself, just to be clear here. So I am a blonde, and sometimes I just totally miss the boat. And I'm torn when progressives, maybe they're actually blonde and they totally miss the boat on issues, or whether they're knowingly ignorant because they want to promote a certain agenda, which there's probably a little bit of both in certain scenarios. But there's one that I found that was interesting as we're seeing the transition between CIA Director Mike Pompeo becoming the Secretary of State. And the hate speech, quote unquote, that the media has created to attack Mike Pompeo, well known here from the Wichita area, former House of Representatives member from the 4th Congressional District here in the Wichita area. So he's a Kansas boy. He's a good old boy that grew up in Kansas. He's got his roots here in Kansas. He's had a wonderful military record. He's a wonderful individual. I've been a very big fan of Mike Pompeo for a long time. When he was congressman, he would come on the show many times and chat about what he was doing, chat about the policies, chat about his agenda, chat about what he's voting on, chat about a lot of things. He would come on here frequently, and we'd love to get him on the show again at some point, and we will, hopefully, at some point. But never once in my conversations with Mike Pompeo have I ever heard anything of a racist mentality from him at all. I've never heard it. He may have made comments and other different discussions or other radio interviews or something, but I've never heard in any context of him being a racist. But now, whether they're completely ignorant and blonde, or whether they just don't care and they want to promote a certain agenda, and they will completely manipulate an entire story in order to promote a certain agenda. Here's the latest story that I saw that I have to get your take on this. In June of 2013, 2 months after the bombing of the Boston Marathon, then Congressman Mike Pompeo took to the House floor criticizing Muslim leaders across the nation for failing to condemn the attack, even though many of them had. This alleged quote-unquote silence made Islamic leaders across America potentially complacent in these acts of terrorism, according to Congressman Mike Pompeo. Pompeo's history as an Islamophobe is no secret. And given his statement on the House floor, not something he's ever tried to hide. But given his potential ascendance to Secretary of State, statements like this above one, and his acceptance of the award from ACT for America, a group classified as the largest anti-Muslim group in the United States by Anti-Defamation League, are drawing new scrutiny. Quote, as the top diplomat for the United States, it's crucial that the Secretary of State carries out foreign policy agenda that doesn't marginalize American communities, according to Hoda Hawa, the Muslim Public Affairs Council, told the Huffington Post. Pompeo has shown, both as a member of Congress and as a CIA director, that his personal feelings inform his policies. His appointment has the potential to harm our nation's image and our relations with key players of the international community, according to Awad. Now, some of these individuals have gone out against, openly and vocally against Pompeo to become the Secretary of State, and now they're urging the Senate to not approve him when it comes to the vote in the Senate to approve him officially for that position as Secretary of State. My question is, what has he done in any way, shape, or form that has led him to become an Islamophobe? I don't know of anything. Now, this comment that he had made calling out Muslim leaders, what's wrong with calling out the Muslim? Now, look, I've been, as you know, I have been one that has been a staunch defender of the Muslim community in many sense, because many of them have come out in support of the community and called out many of the terrorist attacks and said, this is not right. We don't do anything like this. I have traveled through the Wichita Islamic Society, and I've talked to Hussam Mahdi, who's the head of that, and they are great individuals. And they're very open, they're very vocal. They come out and say, hey, you know what? We don't tolerate any type of that conversation. We've been very transparent when it comes to the individuals that actually come to our mosque, and we don't want to do that. We're actually a very intricate part of society. They're the ones that have actually done different benefits and dinners and different things in the community during Christian holidays. They're the ones that have been very vocal, saying Merry Christmas to everybody and so on and so forth, because they want to cherish what they have in the community, and that's great. There are some organizations, however, throughout the nation that are not as vocal about being in support of the whole assimilation and other parts of the community. They're just not. And for Mike Pompeo to come out and say, you know what? You need to come out and you need to condemn these acts with the strongest message possible, to say that you are actually part of the American society, that you're damn proud to be part of the American society, and if you're not, then we have an issue. And if you don't say that, then there's a little concern there, is there not? So how does that one comment make him an Islamophobe? It's not. So are you completely dense and are you blonde because you want to create an agenda and you want to promote something that's actually not true? Or are you just completely dense because one comment, of course, makes you feel very uncomfortable, so therefore your trigger warning has been triggered, and therefore you now feel like he is a Islamophobe because he doesn't like any type of Muslim, which is just not the case. His record shows that he's been very staunch when it comes to military. The way that he's operated his congressional seat shows that he operates it like a business, which is probably why he's been drawn to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's been drawn to him. He has cleaned up the CIA, very much so. He's done a fantastic job showing what's okay and what's not okay when it comes to transparency and when it comes to private intelligence for the CIA, so that way, I don't know, like we don't expose any of our secrets. And now he's going to go in to clean up the Secretary of State position. He's going to be a bold face. He's going to be a very strong leader. He's not going to let other nations try and bully and push us around. And he's going to be working very close with President Donald Trump. What's wrong with any of this situation? What's wrong with any of this circumstance right now? Pompeo's Islamophobe credentials are without dispute. They continue on. He has fought for years to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Okay. Does that mean that he's a racist? No. Does that mean he's an Islamophobe? No. That means that the individuals that are part of the Muslim Brotherhood around the world have predominantly been tied with different terrorist organizations, and that they do not care for the American society, the American dream, the American lifestyle that we actually hold true. There's nothing wrong with condemning the Muslim Brotherhood in those senses. Are you kidding me? Now, I understand for many in the progressive side of the aisle, this is a big transition, a big change for many of them, because President Barack Obama, if you remember, actually funded the Muslim Brotherhood and helped them do the overthrow in Egypt. And they actually helped in those Middle East parts of the world, with the Muslim Brotherhood gaining traction in many of those areas, while still saying that we actually don't support the Muslim Brotherhood. He gave them money, he gave them military weapons, he gave them tanks, he gave them stuff all over the board. So I understand that kind of the reverse 180 degrees here of saying, wait a second, the Muslim Brotherhood and the extremists within that sect probably are not our friends. By saying that kind of comment, I understand that that's a bit of a reversal and a bit of a change, and you're having a hard time adapting. For the ones that say that they like to be the progressives and actually progress and actually change in society, they don't like a whole lot of change, do they? Having an anti-Muslim bigot in Congress, give me a break, or even leading the CIA, as Pompeo has done for 14 months, is one thing, but the same bigot ascending to the role of the nation's top diplomat is quite another. Despite the criticism of the Muslim activists, it's unclear if any senators will oppose Pompeo because of his bigotry. Those who have already declared their opposition to his nomination cite other concerns, including his apparent eagerness to go to war with Iran and his support for torture. Now, there it is. The opinion spreading. They are desperate. This shows now that the desperation on the progressives, not only of them laughing at Donald Trump for having a lot of turnover in his cabinet positions, which there's nothing wrong with that, but the fact that they are scared of actually having someone in positions that's going to do something, actually be a staunch leader, that's not going to apologize for the American agenda, means that, well, they're on the losing end and they continue to be on the losing end. And the only argument they have is racism, bigotry, and Islamophobia. It's kind of interesting to watch, isn't it?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into it. 24 minutes past the hour. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. It is a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration rolls right along. And I want to hear from you. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. You can always shoot me a message there. Leave a comment. Ask a question. Like it. Share it on your own page. Let's spread the word, baby. Spreading conservatism on a daily basis. This is literally the fastest growing program in the entire Mid-America region, and we love it. 316-721-82. By the way, I want to ask you, I know everybody's been talking about this. I have yet to watch it. I've yet to see it, but I've heard great things about it, and now I'm really kind of intrigued. I've been hearing the audio clips of some of the show yesterday from some of the other different talk shows, but this new Roseanne, I'm kind of intrigued by it. Has anybody seen that? Can you give me a rating on that? Can you give me any tips, or if you've thought that you've liked it, or if you did watch the premiere for that? Apparently the ratings were out of this world. It was bigger, by the way, than the 60 Minutes with Stormy Daniels, the porn star that allegedly had the affair with President Trump. It was bigger than that, which means it's kind of funny. We have the 60 Minutes on, let's trash Trump from something years ago from an alleged affair that he had with a porn star. And that's really big news because we really hate Donald Trump and we're going to find any way to demonize him. And then a pro-Trump TV show, a revitalization of a pro-Trump TV show like Roseanne, and they end up hitting a 5.1 share with over 18.5 million people watching for the premiere. Bigger than the 60 Minutes. That shows kind of the mentality that we have in society today, isn't it? The difference between the mainstream media and the elites and the progressives that actually want to demonize, and then the average day American that actually just wants to watch a nice little show and enjoy, that actually has some realism to it when it comes to things that they can relate to with common sense. And they end up dominating. So I do want to see this. I am kind of excited. Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255. Let's go to line number one, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. What's happening?
Well, I got a question that maybe somebody in your audience can answer, and that is, how come everyone's talking about the Second Amendment, talking about you have a right to bear arms?
Sure.
And they act like they believe that. And yet at the same time, I keep hearing in the media that when someone gets shot and killed by the police, one of the excuses they make is that that person had a gun on them. I said, well, now, if it's legal to have a gun on you, how can you use that in a court of law and say that that's a justifiable reason to kill a person when all they did was obey the Second Amendment, which said they had a right to bear the arm.
Well,
they didn't do anything. They just had it. I mean, they killed a guy in a car with his wife sitting there, and all he did was have a gun.
Well, he had a gun, but here's
hold
what hold on.
The cop he had a gun.
Hold on, let me respond to you. You're right. He had a gun, and there is the protocol that you use because you're right. You have the Second Amendment right. You have the right to carry the firearm. What you do have to do, though, is when you had the police officer there, first off, and I don't know if you know many of the laws for concealed carry, but it's, if you get pulled over and you have a concealed carry on you or even in the vehicle, the very first thing before the cop even opens their mouth is you should say, I have a firearm with me, just so you know. So that way you already let them know about the firearm. Now, what happened with the individual being shot in the car was that when the cop understood that he had a firearm, then he said, don't move, don't do anything. And as the individual reached behind him or reached in his back pocket or whatever he went to do to go get his ID, as the cop was saying, don't reach for anything, keep your hands where I can see him and don't move, because he was concerned about having a firearm in the vehicle, then the individual continued to reach for his IDs and stuff while the cop didn't know what he was going for and ended up reacting in that sense. I'm not saying that response.
How did you know that he was reaching for an ID, but the cop thought he was reaching for his gun?
Because that's what the report said. That's what the response was from the wife that was in the car watching this, along with the report from the police officer. That was the report that was saying was that as she was saying he was reaching for his ID, the cop was saying, I told him not to move because he had said he had a firearm, and I wasn't concerned about the ID at that time, and he continued to reach for something, and I didn't know what he was reaching for, and I reacted. That was the report from both sides of the fence there. So we need to, as we have the right to carry the firearm, we also need to abide by the officers when they would let them know exactly what we have, and then also, abide by what they tell us to do. And if they say do not reach for anything, no matter what, in any type of circumstance, because I don't know where your firearm is, then that's what we need to do. Scott, I appreciate it very much. But you're right. We had the right to carry the firearm, but we also need to follow the directions of the law enforcement to a T in that situation, because the firearm in your hand creates a whole other scenario of them not knowing exactly what's going to happen if you carry or if you're going to reach for that or whatever that may be. So appreciate it very much. Let's sneak in another phone call here. We got about 45 seconds to the bottom of the hour. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, this is Helen.
Helen, how are you today?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
And the first thing I want to point out is that Islam is not a race. Islam is a religion. There's many different races that belong to Islam.
Sure.
So for them to, just like there's many different races that are Christian.
That's true.
So,
that's true. This whole Islamophobe movement is kind of absurd, because you're right. Then they say that we're racist against them. We just hate a religion or we hate a people. But you're right. There's not a skin color or a group that's just here are the Muslims. It could be anybody of any different type of race.
And also your point that are people willingly ignorant? Well, God says, 1 Corinthians chapter 14:38, but if any man, any person be ignorant, willingly ignorant, let him be ignorant.
Well, that's true. Helen, I love it. I appreciate it. You're right. There are people that just want to be openly ignorant. But then at the same time, what just bothers me is that while they're openly ignorant and they know they don't know all the information about something, they turn around and they try and act like the experts on it, like the ones trying to ban your guns.
We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. We didn't start the fire. No, we didn't light it.
Andy doesn't tolerate name calling.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
But if you want to try, call the show at 316-721-8255 right now. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into it. 36 minutes past the hour. We love having you aboard. Welcome into it. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, you're more than welcome to do so. Happy Thursday morning to you. The pre-Friday celebration. And we, my friends, are excited because, it's Easter weekend. Happy Easter, happy Passover, happy celebration, whatever that celebration may be. We love being able to actually have a holiday. This is really, I mean, come on, it's really the first big holiday that we've had since the beginning of the year. It's been a long stretch, and you finally made it, which means it's time to indulge and enjoy just a little bit. I want to play an interview that we had yesterday with Pastor Daryl Kelly. He's out of Florida, and now the religious aspect to it, it was kind of an interesting take on what his view was on the religion. But when we talk about the community safety, yesterday was a big topic that we really focused on the entire show, when we tried to focus on community involvement and trying to make the community a better place and unveiling the layers of the onion outside of just gun safety and trying to ban guns. But what's actually going on in society that's been causing issues that we can actually prevent, so that way we don't have people that feel the need to go out and do something stupid. And we kind of had that ongoing theme yesterday on the show. And his new book with Pastor Daryl Kelly, his new book was talking about random acts of kindness, on how we can actually have random acts of kindness. And I love the idea is we've seen local communities and local schools actually want to do the random acts of kindness. I'm very familiar with the idea of random acts of kindness after our shooting that we had in our high school. And it's a great way for us just to remind ourselves as we go about our morning and go about our day to just go do something special, just something small, and go out of our way to do something special for somebody else. And when we do that, we brighten their day and they brighten somebody else's day, and it just it's a chain effect that continues on, and that is how we make our society great. So this was an interview that we had yesterday with Pastor Kelly, Daryl Kelly, with his random acts of kindness. Pastor Daryl Kelly on the line with us. Daryl, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Andy, I am doing great, and thank you for having me on your show.
I appreciate it very much. I love the message of the random acts of kindness. And let me tell you a story. My senior year of high school, I was involved in a high school shooting from Platte Canyon High School in 2006. Directly afterwards, we labeled it as a random act of violence at our school. It was a random individual who came 45 miles away to want to come to our school to commit a problem, and we turned it around in our community as a random act of kindness that we started promoting in our community. Here in the Wichita area, we see Derby Elementary School that just came out with their random acts of kindness. And as we look at different communities to see ways where we can take initiative, we can make our schools safe, we can make our communities happy. We don't need to worry about threats or about violence. Sometimes the random acts of kindness and just treating people the right way is all it takes to start turning things around. Would you agree?
You know what, Andy? I really agree with you 100%. And that's what we need. We need people to come together and do random acts of kindness only because it's supposed to be in your heart. And if, in fact, you say you're a Christian or you're a Muslim or Buddhism or whatever your religion is, it's still about love. It's about representing God. And that's why we came out with the book Wugim, which is an acronym, which stands for God of the universe, God of the world, God of all gods, God of everything, and God of anything, including me. And we talk about love, unity, and acceptance. And at the end of the day, we need more love. We need more love today, Andy, today, not tomorrow, now.
Mm-hmm. Being a pastor, do you see, because unfortunately, I mean, I'm religious myself in the political world, being a political talk show, it's very difficult to talk about the religious aspect to this. But are you seeing society kind of steer itself away from religion, away from God, and maybe that's why we're starting to see some of the issues we are today?
Well, I could definitely disagree with you on that. I want to disagree with you on that for one reason. It's because when people start staring away from God, I truly believe it's because they're ignorant. They don't understand what God is all about. And that's why I primarily, started a religion. And the religion that I started is Wugim, which is based on love, unity, and acceptance. Because at the end of the day, if you call yourself a man or a woman of God, and then you are totally evil in disguise, that's not love to me. I can't do it. I cannot do it. So I refuse to allow people that's negative and that's evil to change the love that I know that we have in us. We can't do it.
It's encouraging to hear that that religion's not dead and that people are still being able to turn the way they need to be able to help themselves move in the positive direction like that. Talk about some of the ways with this random acts of kindness that you've been talking about with your book. Talk about some of the best practices that we can have when it comes to the random acts of kindness, being able to do something nice in your community. As I mentioned, after our school shooting, we had a random acts of kindness, and I mean, it was the little things. The coffee shop did in our small little tiny town. Every time that someone went to the coffee shop, it was already paid for when they went there because the person beforehand had paid for it, so they did it for the next person, and it went on for like 2 weeks straight. And it was just the little things that we did as a community to start mending after something devastating like a school shooting. So, I mean, for your perspective, what little things could we do in the communities to show random acts of kindness to our fellow peers?
Well, if you go to my website, which is uwgeam.com, you will see some of the things that I have done. Random acts of kindness. I'll give you an example. I have a restaurant in Georgia, and it's called Soul, S-O-U-L, Delicious. And I was at my restaurant, and a young lady came to me who works with me, and she goes out and helps people in the community. And she came to me, and she says, Mr. Kelly, she says, there are people outside sleeping under a bridge, and it's freezing cold out there. I said, you know what? Let's go help them. Randomly. The same day, without even hesitating. Mm-hmm. We went and we rented a 15-passenger van, and we went to that bridge, and we found those people under the bridge. We tried our best to take them all, but all of them didn't want to come. Only 15 came. We took all the 15 people, we brought them to the restaurant, we fed each and every one of them, and we gave them jobs. And after we gave them jobs, we went ahead and found housing for them. But then they wasn't content with that. Out of 15 people, only one person stayed in that program and became someone. He went to culinary arts and got his degree in cooking and all that great stuff. And that is random acts of kindness. Random acts of kindness is if you see a person outside of Denny's, like this happened too. And I was leaving Denny's. It was late in the morning, and I saw this gentleman out there. He was being prayed for. And when he was being prayed for, as I'm walking by, I stopped, and I said, I can't do this. And I turned around. And when I turned around, I said, excuse me. And I gave this man $200, and then I turned around and proceeded to walk to my vehicle.
There he goes. That was Pastor Darrell Kelly talking about random acts of kindness. So we talked with him yesterday. We appreciate him coming on the show. And it's a good idea with the random acts of kindness and ways that we can kind of brighten, the community a little bit to actually have some positive things happen in our community as opposed to focusing on so much of the negative. Time for News with Rick. What's happening?
Hey, Andy, good morning. Good morning, everyone. The militia member who tipped off authorities to an alleged bomb plot in Garden City to bomb Somali immigrants is expected to take the stand in the government's case against the three men charged with conspiring to use a weapon of mass destruction. Today, jurors will get a chance to hear for themselves the testimony from Dan Day. The co-owner of a Kansas City water park will not oppose his extradition to Kansas, where a 10-year-old boy died on a water slide in 2016. For now, though, Schlitterbahn co-owner Jeffrey Wayne Henry will remain in Cameron County Jail in Brownsville, Texas, without bond. A magistrate judge there said that he'd entertain a request to grant Henry bond if Kansas officials don't pick him up by Tuesday. Kansas Governor Jeff Collier has ordered flags to be flown at half-staff to honor the life of civil rights icon Linda Brown, who as a young girl was the center of the landmark case Brown versus the Board of Education, in which the U.S. Supreme Court in 1954 struck down racial segregation in schools. Brown passed away on Sunday. And a Massachusetts woman has filed a federal lawsuit accusing her tenant of using her Martha's Vineyard home to shoot pornographic videos without telling her. The lawsuit filed this week says Leah Bassett had no idea when she rented out her home in 2014 that it would be used to shoot the films. Bassett says the filmmakers used nearly every room of her home for their porn production purposes, including bedrooms, sofas, dining room tables, and the oh-so-dreaded laundry room appliances. There you have it,
Well,
the news.
Okay, now, I'm torn on this one.
There was no mention of Trump in this story.
There's no
either.
mention of Donald Trump in this one or Stormy Daniels, so that's at least a good sign. I guess if you're renting it out, do you have the right to use the house as you deem fit? Now, I'm not in any way, shape, or form advocating for the use of filming adult films, but at the same time, if you're renting it out, don't you kind of have the privacy kind of do what you will in the home to some degree?
Well, the plaintiff in the case, the landlord, said that the highly disturbing discovery has caused her emotional and psychological distress.
Does that mean she has to like reorganize the entire house and buy a whole new appliances and everything?
I'm thinking a call to Stanley Steamer might be in order.
Either that or a brand new washer and dryer, because you never know. Wow, I got one word for you. Schlitterbanja.
That's the news.
That's news with Rick.
And that's the news.
Well, way to change the pace on that discussion there as we talk about that one. I do find it ironic, again, to the fact that it's talking about the adult films of Stormy Daniels in the 60 Minutes interview that she did. First off, we're looking at an adult film star to talk about the morality of a presidency and how unmoral a president is as an adult film star. Second off, the ratings of that are still less than the pro-Trump Roseanne premiere episode, which I find quite interesting. So it kind of shows you right now that we are still on the right path, majoritively in the nation. Just because there's a loud voice on one side of the aisle does not necessarily mean that that's the movement and that that's the direction that we're headed as a nation. They can yell, scream, do whatever they want to, but that doesn't mean that they actually have the numbers. That doesn't mean that they actually have the momentum. They can try, they can pretend, but that's not the case. They're still on the losing end. There's not been a blue wave. There's not been this crazy progressive movement that's actually taking over the nation. We're still winning, and we need to remind ourselves of that to continue on with the fight, because sometimes it does seem a little disheartening, doesn't it?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Hey, good morning to you. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Wrapping up hour number one already right here on the Mid-America Network. It's hard to believe. Your thoughts and calls always open and appreciated. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, we are open on social media all across the board. Facebook Live right now. Twitter at Hoosier Reason. The email, Andy at KQAMradio.com. Does not matter how you want to touch on this. I didn't want to touch on this really today and talk about it, but I may tease a little bit. We may talk about it more tomorrow in the first hour when we had the Western stations. But Oklahoma has voted to give teacher salary hikes in I don't think it's the entire state, but I think it's just Oklahoma City, to where they actually did some hikes for salary wages for the teachers. The state of Kansas, they have come out with a proposal officially, their first one. Now, I doubt that's going to be the end product, because we got a ways to go, and they're going to wait till the last minute. But according to the Topeka Capital Journal, the Kansas House Committee backs a 5-year, $500 million school finance plan. Now, I find that crazy, because number one, the progressives obviously have been pushing for the $2 billion, which is what the study came out saying that we needed, $1.75 billion over the next 4 years, 4 to 5 years. Now they're coming out with a $500 million school funding plan. That's after that they said that we at least needed last year a $600 million increase in school finance. So between this has been the focus on a lot of the Mid-America region and really all over the country. If you look up in Wisconsin, the teachers are really upset because they haven't had their collective bargaining rights, because Governor Scott Walker, a solid conservative up there, has been able to begin repealing some of the unions and pushing back on some of the union power at the federal or at the state level, which is a very good thing. And they're upset, so they're trying to overhaul that one. He's going into an election this year. We're seeing here in the state of Kansas, we're seeing the massive overhaul when it comes to finance for education with close to $2 billion. How that's going to pan out, I don't know. We're going to see some tax increases. Oklahoma, as far as I'm aware of, we'll get another update from somebody down there, but we're still seeing a massive special session in session while at the same time they're doing their regular session, because they have not been able to get their finances in order. The economy took a crazy dive in Oklahoma. When it comes to a lot of the manufacturing, when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to the oil and natural gas, every industry that Oklahoma had went in the tank, and they're suffering from it. And then, of course, they're blaming the Republicans and the lack of tax increases and the fact that they have to have a supermajority of the legislature to vote for any type of tax increase, which I really think we should be implementing here in Kansas. Wouldn't you think? If we're going to talk about $2 billion in more funding, if we're going to talk about more spending across the board, if we're going to talk about financial problems in the state and we want to raise taxes like we saw the retroactive tax in July of last year, wouldn't we want to put in some type of law, hint, hint, wink, wink, any legislators may be listening to the program right now, that we can actually propose to say that any type of tax increase, income tax, sales tax, property tax, cigarette tax, any of it, if you want a single penny more from me than you're already receiving, then you need to have 3/4 majority of the vote in both chambers of the legislature. You need to have a 3/4 majority of vote in both chambers. Not just for the override of a veto, but to actually pass it the first time, you have to have that. They wouldn't like it. They're not going to go for that. And with our moderate legislature right now, there's no way in heck that they would actually advocate for that. But it'd be nice to try. But right now, according to the Topeka Capital Journal, lawmakers working later than expected Wednesday night embraced a plan to add $100 million annually in public school funding for the next 5 years. Members of the House K-12 Education Budget Committee approved the proposal from Representative Stephen Johnson, a Republican, despite concerns about the potential need for future tax increases and whether the amount will satisfy the Kansas Supreme Court. Number one, no, it will not satisfy the Kansas Supreme Court. Number two, this is nothing more than the facade to try and act like we're resolving the issue to get through an election year. I can tell you right now, that's what the smoke and mirrors legislation is right now. That's all it is. Because this is even less than what they were advocating for before this study came out. They wanted $600 million. Then they came out with $1.7 billion. Now they're coming out with $500 million, even less than their original asking price. I doubt it. Now this might be the Republican alternative compromise bill, but it's still no. We don't need a single penny more going into education. Even if we're trying to appease, this is not going to appease. The Supreme Court's going to shut it down and say, it's not going to happen. But the whole idea of this, just from looking at it at face value, is their saving face of saying, we're going to try and resolve this in a long-term goal, get through the election, and then 2019 say, yeah, no, you know what? We got through one more school year. The Supreme Court said it's not going to be enough. Now we can start crazily raising your taxes, increasing spending dramatically, and then we're going to have 2 years for you to forget all about it because it's going to be right after an election. That's what the motive of this bill is, and let's try and figure out a little more reasonable approach, shall we? Hour number 2, The Voice of Reason, coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech, you're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heartland of the United States, right here in Wichita, Kansas. Great to have you along today. It is a Thursday, the pre-Friday celebration. Here on the Voice of Reason on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM simulcasting on KGPT TV. Welcome aboard, 8 minutes past the hour, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, you're more than welcome to do so. We have the Facebook Live feed that's up and rolling as well. We have Twitter at Hoosier Reason if you'd like to comment on there. Andy at KQAMradio.com if you want to email me too. So much to get to at the bottom of the hour. Today's going to be a little bit different show as we are getting ready for Easter, by the way. We're getting ready for the holiday, and coming up at 7:30 in just about 20 minutes from now, I am excited to have Chad Bontrager. He is with Yoder Meats, and we're going to talk with him about some of the specials they have at Yoder Meats for the Easter holiday. Also, at 8 o'clock, it is the last Thursday of the month, which is hard to believe, for March already, which means, by the way, we are now officially 11 months away from St. Patrick's Day. Get ready for that one. Phil Martinez of Phil's Coins is going to be joining us in the 8 a.m. hour, so looking forward to all of our great guests coming up in just a little bit. I have some stories that I want to get to. I do want to hold off on those for just a second because why the heck not? Let's go ahead and start off hour number 2 with a phone call. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, Scott.
Hey, good morning,
You
Scott.
just said that on your news center that a man got shot in California because the cops said they thought he had a gun.
Okay.
Now, how can there be a Second Amendment and a cop can justify shooting somebody because they said he had a gun on him?
Scott, there's a difference between actually just
They didn't
having...
say he called the gun. They said he had a gun.
Well, it might have been a quick little blurb. We don't know the full story. We can't gauge an entire story based on a 30-second or 20-second blurb, can we?
Well, aren't you the guys that do the news? Aren't you supposed to keep people informed?
Oh, we do, but sometimes you can't read the entire article. That's just a little teaser to say, hey, there's a big story coming on and we can get some more information. Now, if you'd like, I can research that story a little bit. But, there's a big difference between saying that we just have the possession of a firearm, so therefore the cops have the legitimate right to shoot us, to... okay, there's another firearm in the scenario, and there's a movement, there's an action, there's something that could cause the concern for the police officer to be concerned about his life or the life of other people around them, and therefore they take the matter into their hands. I'm not saying that the action is always technically right on that response, but at the same time, we gotta shut it down pretty quickly, don't we?
Well, the man didn't have a gun. They already established that.
Sure.
But now the police, according to your news broadcast, says they thought he had a gun. Now, if you saying that as your defense, you should be arrested because the Second Amendment says that you have a right to bear arms.
Well, you're right. Let's bring in, for example, the swatting incident that happened just a few months ago. What was it, November, December, when that happened? And the officers...
No gun.
No gun, but there was the threat of the potential of having the gun. And when they told him to keep his hands where they were and not to move, he ended up reaching for the door of the door handle, which is about waistline. And as he started moving that way in the dark and looking like he's going towards his waist, what do you expect for the officers to think happening they're saying don't move and don't do anything?
Who gave the order to shoot at that point? Because it's supposed to be a supervisor on the scene. He's supposed to have a nighttime vision where he can see what's going on, and nobody ever saw a gun.
Does everybody have that equipment? I don't know.
Well, police supposed to have it because they spend a lot of money, so they should have some night vision goggles, and at least the supervisor should have it because he's the one supposed to give the order.
Mm-hmm. And when Scott, I don't want to focus on this the whole time. I appreciate it, and I want to move along here from that. But look, we cannot judge, and I've said this before. We cannot judge, we cannot gauge, and we cannot judge a law enforcement officer for the actions that they take at that time. When it comes to a reactionary situation, is it always the best reactionary situation? No, it's not. Not all the time. At the same time, when you're told to sit still and not move a single muscle, and you move a muscle, and there's the threat of someone saying that there was a gun involved because the swatting incident like that one, saying that there was an individual with a gun holding people hostage and he was very dangerous, and they show up and they have a threat of him potentially having a gun. Now, you have the right to own the gun, but if you have a gun or there's a threat of another gun involved and they say don't move a single muscle and you move a muscle, then that means you're not abiding by law enforcement and what they need you to do to make sure that the situation's taken care of. And, oh, by the way, if you move, especially towards the waistband of yourself when there's a threat of a gun, then they're going to react on that. And I'm not going to judge the law enforcement on that type of reaction. That's just the case. I can't judge. You can't judge because we've never been in that kind of situation. And when it's dark and you have no idea what the situation is or what they're doing, then you know what? It's a reactionary thing of what they've been trained to do, which is eliminate the potential threat and protect themselves and protect everybody else around them. And that's what's happened. Now, if this is the situation in the news story that happened, then I don't know the details of that one, and I can look into it, but I'm assuming it's probably the same type of situation. If it's not, and it's an unjustified shooting to where it was just a law enforcement officer on a power trip, then they're going to be punished in the appropriate manner, as law enforcement has done in the past as well. So we can't judge on that and just, we can't go after the Second Amendment because, well, we had the right to own the gun, but if we own the gun, we're going to get shot by police. That's not the case. It's the actions that we take while we own the firearm. Are we abiding by law enforcement's wishes when we let them know that we're carrying a firearm, or if there's the threat of having the firearm? Are we abiding by those wishes? Are we doing what the law enforcement tells us to do? Do we understand the laws of when we own a firearm and carry a firearm, of what responsibility comes with that? That's what we have to be looking at here, not the law enforcement and their action of that. If it's unjustified, then they will be punished appropriately. Because I haven't seen yet a law enforcement officer that hasn't been punished inappropriately or appropriately in those situations. They've been put on hold. They've been taken off the force. They've been punished. They've been jailed, a lot of them. And we're seeing a lot of them. We've seen, what was it, the case a few months ago with the law enforcement officer that ended up pushing a referee or something at a basketball game, and just something small like that got him suspended and got him punished. They're getting their they're getting their rule of law. The rule of law is working, and we need to actually abide by that and actually follow the law. And if they tell us to not move, then we don't move, regardless of what you want to do to try and justify what you're doing. Or if you continue to reach in your back pocket, if you continue to turn around when they tell you not to turn around, then you're going to get in trouble. And if there's a threat of that firearm, that's just going to amplify the situation, which we don't want to be in. 316-721-8255. Let's take another phone call. Good morning. What's your name? Hello.
My name is Stan.
Hey, good morning, Stan. How are you?
Hey, good.
Good.
First off, I got to say, you're totally off the reservation. Law enforcement works for us. They work for us. They don't give us commands. That guy that got the swatting call on him, Wichita PD was totally in the wrong. 100%. That's all I got to say.
All right. Well, I appreciate the call. You're right that law enforcement works for us. We pay their bills. We're the taxpayers that hold them accountable. But at the same time, they are the law enforcers. They are the ones that keep the peace, the peacekeepers, if you want to call them that. They're the ones that keep civility in society. They're the ones that keep the bad people off the streets and from doing bad things, because we have a set of laws, and that's their duty. So if there's a concerning situation to where someone is using a gun inappropriately, maybe robbing a store or holding somebody hostage or doing something bad, or if there's a situation to where we're not sure what's going on, it is their duty to step in and be the law enforcers. That's what their goal, that's what their job is. Yeah, they work for us, but at the same time, when there's a situation that needs to be de-escalated just like that, that's what their role is, and therefore we have to abide by what they need us to do in that situation. Now, I'm not saying, you pull up next to a police officer at the gas station and they start bullying you around just because they have the right to do so. That's not what we're talking about. It's about the de-escalation of the situation, and law enforcement, being that's their sole duty, is to create a rule of law and rule and order and the lack of chaos in society. That's what their goal is. That's what their purpose is as a law enforcement agent. I understand your point, but at the same time, they have to have authority in those types of situations, and I'm not going to judge on the swatting case because, again, from every law enforcement individual that we've talked to on the air, that I've talked to off the air, in every scenario that I've heard, it was a bad, unfortunate situation. They showed up, it was dark, the individual was there in front of the door, everybody was there trying to de-escalate him. He turned around when he wasn't supposed to. He reached for the door handle, which is right at about the waistline, and as you're turning and looking and moving your hand towards that area, then with the fear of him holding people hostage, potentially, having a gun, potentially, being extremely dangerous, potentially, they reacted and they eliminated the threat of what they saw at the time. Was it the right move? I'm not going to be able to judge. I guess the court of law will be able to judge on that one. But that's the purpose of law enforcement, is to de-escalate the situation. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Just because you have a firearm does not necessarily make you more of a target or a threat when it comes to law enforcement. It's how you handle yourself with that. If you know the laws when you carry a concealed carry firearm, if you get pulled over on the side of the street and the cop walks up to your window and says, "How are you doing today, sir or ma'am," or whatever, or other, and we say, "Officer, I'm doing fine, but by the way, I have a concealed carry in the car. It's on my hip or it's in my glove compartment, but I have a firearm." That's your duty. And if you don't say that, then you're going to get in trouble for one. And if you do, and they stop you for more than just a traffic violation, but because they ran your tag and your tag came up as a stolen vehicle, or there's the smell of marijuana or something there, and you mentioned they had the firearm, then guess what? The entire situation gets escalated even more so. Because that's what their duty is to de-escalate that. And when they say, okay, keep your hands on the wheel, do not reach for anything in any way, shape, or form, do not move a muscle, and you end up reaching for your back pocket when they tell you not to do so, they're going to react appropriately. And I don't blame them for reacting appropriately because you didn't follow the rule at that time. 316-728-8255. Not necessarily the topic we wanted to get on, but it's an interesting conversation if you do want to chime into it. 18 minutes past the hour. Let's go ahead and take a break. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
There's a healthy discussion popping up on social media on the Facebook Live feed right now when it comes to this swatting incident and law enforcement and the duty of. I love it. I love it. Doug on Facebook Live, learn Kansas law. There's no duty to inform law enforcement officer that you are carrying concealed. I'm not talking about Kansas state law. You're right, there's not a Kansas state law necessarily saying that, but it is commonly taught. If you take a course in concealed carry permits, if you take a course in concealed carry at all, carrying a firearm, or it's just common knowledge-ish where that's just kind of what you do. If law enforcement's talking with you or whatever, you let them know or you make them aware of the fact that there is a firearm so that way they're aware of that situation. So that way it doesn't get escalated out of control later on. You de-escalate it from the beginning. That's kind of commonly taught when you go through a concealed carry course sort of thing. So I'm not talking about Kansas state law. You're right. If there's a Kansas state law that doesn't necessarily say that, then you don't technically have to, but you would think you would want to before something does get out of hand, and then all of a sudden you pull a gun and then they fire, and then it's just all out of craziness. Now, when it comes to the swatting incident, listener on Facebook Live, swatting incident is unfortunate. The Wichita PD acted on 100% heresy and executed somebody that there's something wrong with that picture. I disagree with that. I respect the sentiment, but I disagree. It is unfortunate. It's absolutely unfortunate. I don't see it as heresy or executing somebody. It was the fact that they reacted in a shady situation in the first place. It was the bad reaction, obviously, but it was a reaction nonetheless, and they will be tried in the court of law. And the family members already came out and endorsed the swatting bill that came out of the state legislature and the federal legislature, saying that we need to start punishing individuals doing the swatting, so that situation could have been averted altogether in the first place. But we need to not focus necessarily on the law enforcement here, but the situation that was created. And yes, it's an unfortunate situation, and it breaks my heart that somebody died. We're not trying to defend that in any way, shape, or form. We're just saying it's an unfortunate situation, and when guns are drawn, when there's an intense situation, and there's quick movement when there was told to be no quick movement, then I'm not going to judge someone for reacting in that way, because they'd like to go home at the end of the day, too. I know it's a crazy concept, but they like to go home at night to their families just as much as anybody else. Let's take a phone call, shall we? 721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy.
Hey, good morning, Helen. How's it going?
This is Helen. Yeah, I have a question. Regarding this swatting thing,
yes.
They got this fake phone call,
Mm-hmm.
and it came from California. Don't they have caller ID? Don't they have...
Possibly. I mean, I don't know how a call center for 911 emergency services actually works. I'm sure they have some type of caller ID, and they're able to... if people call when they're being kidnapped or something, they can usually try and track the phone to some degree. But I don't know how many times they necessarily use that and how quickly law enforcement needs to respond to that. So if there's someone calling, who knows? It could have been somebody calling with a California number but lives here or traveled here or something. We don't know the situation. And that could have been it. I mean, they could have had a California cell phone number, but would said, "Hey, I'm in Wichita traveling, and oh, by the way, yeah, I'm visiting family, and this is what's going on, and oh my gosh, you need to get there right now." I mean, we don't know the situation. I know that tracking a phone number and the location of them does take some time, and if they're trying to de-escalate a kidnapping situation, then that definitely doesn't constitute for us to have a lot of time to say, "All right, where's your cell phone at, and where are you located right now? We're going to track you and give me 20 minutes to figure out where your phone is." I don't know if we necessarily have that kind of time.
Well, what about the Fourth and Fifth Amendment and due process of law? Instead of making a knee-jerk reaction that, oh, we got this. We've heard on the news multiple times the police say that not to be calling 911, and they get a lot of fake, false alarms, calls.
Sure.
And they spend a lot of money and time, chasing a wild goose chase, which is not even. And they warn us about that on the news. Don't be calling. Don't be calling.
You're right. I mean, we don't want to create those. Now, remember, too, statistically, this is a very rare event. This was a kind of a hiccup that happened, and it's unfortunate for sure, but it's a very rare event that actually happens. There's a lot of swatting calls that happen, and there's just right after that, just a month later, there were 2 other swatting incidents, one right on the Missouri side of Kansas City and one around Lawrence area, to where there were 2 more swatting calls. The law enforcement did go and investigate, and no one was harmed. They came there, they knocked on the doors, they had their guard up for sure, but they de-escalated it pretty quickly. They searched the house, they made sure everything was fine, and then they left, and it was all said and done. So, of course, it's the one incident to where we saw something negative happen that's getting all the publicity when, percentage-wise, when it comes to these types of incidents, is that it's a very low statistic of something actually bad and dramatic happening, but we need to try and cut off these kind of calls anyways. In the first place, that's what the focus needs to be on, is why do we feel the need to think it's a prank or a joke to make a phone call that say that someone's life's in danger and that law enforcement needs to go take care of them? I don't, unless they're trying to see something harm or they just don't understand the repercussions of what they're doing. That's what we need to be focused on. But statistically, this is a very rare event that happened with someone actually dying in this type of situation.
Right. I think we need to go back to the Constitution and the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, due process of law.
Well, then there's that, absolutely. I appreciate the call, Helen, very much so. Got to take a break. When we come back, we'll have Yoder Meats with us. It is Easter, and I don't want to focus on the negativities and death and bad, terrible things, because we like actually positive things happening, and Easter and the holiday coming up this weekend is definitely something that we can celebrate and we can enjoy. Bottom of the hour news coming up, lots more on the show today. Don't miss it. It's time for your phone calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
Touch me, 'cause I'm who can stop me tonight? You make me feel invincible. I feel it, invincible. I feel invincible.
Taking talk radio to the next level. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into it. It is a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration has begun. We're just a few days away from Easter. Can you believe it? This year's gone by way too fast. Really the first major holiday of the year, which means you get some time off, hopefully. Maybe tomorrow or maybe Monday. Maybe get a day off of work. Enjoy it. But we're going to continue on as the pre-Friday celebration that it is. 36 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. I will continue on that conversation in just a little bit. We got some more Facebook Live comments. One heck of a hiccup. A guy lost his life. What the heck? Well, I understand. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a bit. But I want to be on a happy note for once. I mean, talk radio sometimes can be kind of the trend of negativity with complaining about a lot of things, and we don't like to do that. We like to talk about positive things, one of them being the fact that it is Easter. And now I am an avid meat eater, and I like to go even to the extent of I need to eat additional meat for any of them that don't like to eat meat for political purposes or other, and I need to eat additional meat for that. And Yoder Meats is the place to do that. YoderMeatsKS.com is their website. And Chad Bontrager in with us here. Good morning, Chad. How are you?
Good morning, Andy. Great.
I appreciate you coming in here. First off, it's got to be a blast to work with meat every day.
You know, we have a lot of fun. It's a good time.
I can only imagine. First, before we get into some of the specials and Easter, talk about just Yoder Meats, how long you guys have been in business and kind of what you do.
Yoder Meats has been around quite a while. I'm actually the third owner of the business. Bought the business back in August.
Okay. Well, congrats.
Well, thanks. We offer a full line of custom processing. So if you raise your own animals, you can bring them in. We'll process them for you, take all the meat home. We've also got 4 retail stores, 1 in Yoder, 3 here in Wichita, and offer a full line of meat, frozen and fresh. Come in, pick it out for today's meal, for the week, whatever you want to do.
Sure.
We've got a wide selection.
Sure. Do you see a lot of people, I mean, what's kind of the trend? Do you see a lot of people come in just for like the daily meal, or do you see them come in and stock up for, 2-3 weeks at a time?
More of the daily or weekly shopper than the big stock up. But for the folks that like to stock up, we've got a bundle program where you can buy a larger quantity of meat.
Fun. Okay. We do like to do that once in a while. I mean, we got one of those seal vac things to be able to put stuff in the freezer and have it last for 6 months. So, you have that option as well to do that in the bundle package.
Sure.
What's one of the biggest items that you see go out your door? What type of meat?
Probably the most popular meat is beef for us in terms of
what's
sales.
For dinner.
Yeah, beef. It's what's for dinner. And ground beef, very popular. We're actually going to run a special on that in April, so be listening for that. But, a lot of people just a steak, couple of steaks for dinner or special occasion or whatever. A beef item, definitely the most popular.
Sure. We do you see trends? We were talking a little bit about this off the air before we came on, but kind of the trends seasonally when it comes to the different types of meats. And I know there's been a really big push lately for chicken. I'm not sure why. Maybe chicken's been a little more accessible or price wise, but I'm sure wintertime, you had mentioned a lot of like the roasts to make stew and nice warm hearty meals during the wintertime, and then summertime or spring at least getting into a lot of the briskets and sort of thing. But so you do see kind of the seasonal types of meats that come out the door.
Absolutely. So you're right. In the winter, the colder months, roasts are very popular, and you still sell the other items, but you definitely see an uptick. And then as we move into spring and warmer weather, people want to be outside. They want stuff for the grill, maybe a little quicker cooking time.
Sure.
So hamburgers popular, steaks are popular, and then items you can smoke, brisket, pork butt, things like that.
You're making me very hungry. Yeah, it's early in the morning. Yeah.
And then as we head into the fall, we'll switch over to turkeys and prime ribs, and then gift type items or party type items. So summer sausage and cheese and that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay, so you guys even do some cheese as well there.
Yep.
You see that come out. Very cool. That's a lot of fun. Now coming up for Easter. Everybody likes to do the big ham for Easter. It's kind of the tradition. At least that's what we do on most cases. How many hams do you see come out your door around Easter time?
This year we planned to have 500 hams kind of ready to go.
Yeah.
And we've been taking orders and selling those, and obviously that's picked up this week.
Sure.
We're going to be probably a little over the 500 mark by the time it's all said and done, so we appreciate everybody coming out and getting one of those.
That's going to be fantastic. And you guys do the specials around the Easter holiday as well. Let people know about those. What do you guys got going on right now?
Well, you can get let's talk about ham. You can get a whole or half ham. It can be spiral cut or not, whatever your choice is. Spiral cut's $5.19 a pound. Pretty good deal on a local, all-natural ham.
Sure.
Very consistent, high-quality product. And then we're going to be $4.19 for the ones that aren't spiral cut. So that's a good option. And then we've also got lamb. So this time of the year is when your lambs are usually fattened up and ready to go. And so we've been busy with that at the plant in Yoder, and we've got lamb in the stores now. The deal with lamb is now's the time. Come in and get it, try it out, whatever. We sell a little bit all year.
Okay.
But the vast majority of the lamb that we sell goes out the door at Easter time.
Around Easter and this time of year.
Yep.
How fun. Now, you mentioned a lot of it is coming from you locally, somewhat locally around here, and it is inspected, but, you can't just kind of shoot it on, out in the woods and then bring it to you that day sort of thing. But at the same time, you do have a lot of the local meats. And do you get a lot of people that come in and ask about the different, with other types of stores with the processed meat or the stuff that they put in the meat or the different injections or the steroids or that sort of thing?
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about that, and our folks in the stores, they're educated on that topic and they're ready to have that conversation with customers. That's actually what brings a lot of folks in. So The nice thing about Yoder Meats is the beef, the pork, the lamb, it's all sourced locally. We know the backstory about it. We can talk to folks about that, and we're honest. We tell them what we know, and sometimes they're looking for something a little bit different, or maybe we have just what they're after. So,
what's one of the more exotic types of meats that you have there?
Probably our most popular exotic item right now, and I can't hardly keep it on the shelf, is elk.
Really?
For some reason, people just love elk. I was talking to a lady last night, and she said, my daughter has a beef allergy, and so elk is our thing. And she said, I've been eating some of it myself, and it tastes just like beef. I can't say that I've heard that before, but I know we have a lot of people come in and ask for the elk summer sausage and the elk jerky and that kind of thing. So.
I love elk. I came from Colorado about 3 years ago, and I mean, we used to go elk hunting all the time. I love elk, but it's extremely lean, and there's a really different flavor to it. I've never heard it being taste like beef before.
No, that was a new one for me,
Yeah,
too.
that's a new one because it is very, very lean, and it's kind of an acquired taste when it comes to elk. It's good, but you kind of need to try it.
If you like deer, if you like buffalo, if you're kind of a wild game fan, then you're probably going to like elk. Like you said, it's a lean meat. Has a great flavor, but it is different. So try it out and see what you think.
Try it out. You mentioned rabbit too. How much rabbit do you have go through there?
We don't sell a ton of rabbit. I'm gonna estimate that maybe we sell 4 or 5 rabbits a week in total. But there's folks out there that are looking for that. I've actually had some conversations about getting a local supplier here in Kansas grow the rabbits for us, and we'll process them and then we can provide those. We're not doing that today. But as we learn more about that business and kind of understand the volume demand, maybe that's something we get into.
That's interesting. I haven't had rabbit since the very first time I shot a rabbit when I was a kid, and my parents said, all right, you shot it, now you got to skin it and cook it and kind of thing, and we had rabbits too, and it was really good. I love rabbits.
That's the best way to do it.
It is the best way to do that. So that's really cool that people are actually wanting and going out of their way to kind of look for that. You have the stores you have in Yoder. Then you have East, West, and on Mays here in Wichita. Do you also sell outside at different local markets or different grocery stores as well?
We do have some wholesale accounts.
Okay.
Most of it's not retail in those situations. They're putting it in. It's a restaurant that's cooking with it or something like that. So we are selling product in other places. But at this point in time, for the consumer to walk in off the street and buy a Yoder Meats product, they need to go to one of our stores.
One of the stores, absolutely. Here's the big question. There are a lot of individuals, whatever in society today, that necessarily don't like to eat meat, kind of go into the vegan, vegetarian thing. My public service duty is to compensate for their lack of meat eating. How much do I need to eat when it comes to meat?
Well, I don't know the percentage on on how many non-meat eaters there are out there, but I would say it's a safe bet. If you eat twice as much as the recommended intake, we ought to be fine.
Well, we ought to be just fine. 2-3 times, I think we're good. I can at least compensate for 1 or 2 of them.
There
right?
you go.
There we go. Exactly. Chad Bontrager, Yoder Meats. Check them out. YoderMeatsKS.com. Got 3 locations here in Wichita. 1 actually in Yoder. Great specials happening right now for the Easter holiday. The hams walking out the door, as you mentioned, close to 500 of them you're anticipating for just the Easter holiday. That's going to be fantastic.
It's going to be great.
What are your hours for the next couple of days? Obviously not open on Easter Sunday, but what are you looking at for the next couple of days?
We're open every day, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at all locations, and then, like you said, we'll be closed on Sunday. On Sunday. Well, Chad, I appreciate you coming in the studio, my friend. Proud sponsor here with KQAM. We love partnering with you, working with you, and now I'm hungry for lots and lots of meat this morning. Yeah, slip out to the store after a while, Andy. It'll be great. It's going to be a great time. Chad, I appreciate it, my friend. Happy Easter to you. Same to you. Very good. Got to take a break here, wrapping up hour number 2, 46 minutes past the hour. We'll open up lines to you when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2 already. Goes by just way too fast. Thanks again to Chad with Yoder Meats, YoderMeatsKS.com, as you check out some of the great meats and meat specials for the Easter holiday. I love it. Way too much fun there. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Listener on Facebook, what's your thoughts on legislation to give tax breaks to local businesses using Kansas ag meat, for example? for our local restaurants and local stores as opposed to importing the meat from other places. Yeah, baby, let's make that happen. Look, there's a big argument that always goes on between the evil large corporations and then supporting local businesses and doing what we can for our communities. And there's the big issue. We have mom and pop shops that are doing their thing, that are flourishing, that are beginning to hopefully do well because of the Trump tax cuts and the local economy growing and the national economy growing and everything happening that we need to focus on. And for us to incentivize to allow that to happen, let's give tax breaks to say, you know what, if you're buying things locally from other local producers and other local manufacturers and other local stores and other local whatever, then let's incentivize. It kind of falls into the internet sales tax thing. What was the argument for that? Well, number one, they said that they were losing out revenue because they act like it's actually their revenue, which is really, really funny. But their other argument was that, well, look, we got to make it fair because the local brick and mortar stores get the sales tax on them, so then they're losing out business, so therefore we need to impose the sales tax on the internet, so that way it's fair and we're getting the internet sales tax on both ends, and then that way we can incentivize hopefully people to want to go and actually purchase things at the local brick and mortar store. And it's kind of the same argument as what Trump did with the imports and the tariffs when it comes to importing goods, is we can either create another penalty by creating the internet sales tax, or we can just lower the sales tax at the local brick and mortar stores, and then we can incentivize that way as well. There's a difference on what you can do, either punishment or incentivizing. And that's the big difference. So, yes, let's incentivize by giving tax breaks across the board because, well, we have the opportunity to give tax breaks across the board. Time for Rick with news.
And it's time for some good news.
Okay, here we go, people.
I like good news.
I like good news, too. Good morning, Andy. Good morning, everyone. A militia member who tipped off law enforcement to an alleged plan by 3 men to bomb an apartment complex where Somali immigrants lived in Garden City is testifying at their trial in federal court at Wichita today. Jurors will hear the testimony of Dan Day, a paid informant who wore a wire for the FBI, capturing months of profanity-laced recordings that are key to the prosecution's case. Patrick Stein, Gavin Wright, and Curtis Allen are all charged with conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction and other charges. Good news, you say? Good news it is. Customers of Atmos Energy and Black Hills Energy will get bill credits beginning next month under settlements approved by the Kansas energy regulators. The Kansas Corporation Commission said the credits are due to federal tax law changes that reduced the utilities tax rates from 35% to 21%. Atmos gas customers will receive an annual reduction of $18.56 in their bill. Black Hills Energy customers will receive an average credit of $11.50 annually. $11.50.
I feel so much better.
Annually.
I feel so much better. And you know what funny part, if
Easy
I can
for
speak
you
today,
to say.
The funny part about this is that we actually had to take this and fight it to actually make it happen, or else they wouldn't have done it.
To get less than $1
To get less
a
than
month.
$1 a month. Hey, I feel better about myself.
Wichita now has another venue for moviegoers. The AMC North Rock 14 movie theater opens tomorrow. Over the past year, AMC has renovated the old North Rock 14 building near 29th and Rock Road. Wichita Eagle reports the theaters range in size from 33 to 171 seats, and every seat in the building is a plush leather recliner with at least 3 feet of space separating the rows of seating. There's a bar in the lobby, Andy.
That's what I'm talking about.
There you
Sold!
go.
Although you'll still get the kid behind you kicking your seat, even with the 3 feet of
With
distance.
3 feet? That's a long-legged little kid.
Nah, they're going to sit on the floor and be like, you know what's going to happen.
Standard admission at the new AMC theater, less than $10 after 4 o'clock, and less than $5 for matinee screenings. Tickets to the deluxe Dolby Cinema at AMC will be a little bit extra.
Relatively close to where I am, too, up on the east side, so I might have to go and enjoy that.
East side.
I am, too.
Okay.
I mean, come on.
Because he's moving on up.
So,
hey, and Phil Martinez is coming in the next half hour.
He'll be here in just a few minutes.
Now, his wife sent me a text, and she says, he's not too fired up this morning. I've already heard him. There's no such thing as Phil Martinez not being fired up.
Yeah, well, you know what? I am looking forward to chatting with him in just a few minutes as well. So, we do have good news then. So we have the fact that our utility rate gets down less than $1 a month, and that we get a new movie theater.
Well, careful how you word that. You just said that our utility bill goes down to less than $1 a month. Now, I would be in favor of that news. No, Black Hills Energy customers have a reduction of almost $1 a month.
Almost $1 a month.
Not even really, but we'll call it.
We're working on that.
Yes.
There you go. Rick with the news.
And that's the news.
There it is, Rick Everett. We'll get another update from him in hour number 3. As isn't it sad? I mean, the utility companies, look, they may be a private company to some degree, but at the same time, they're regulated through a public utility kind of commission because they provide a public utility. So when the tax rates go down, it should have automatically been, hey, we're going to drop this down pretty quickly. But they haven't because, well, I mean, they get to choose what their rates are. The fact is, though, is that we don't have a whole lot of options, do we? Do we not have choices when we sign up for our utility rates around here? It's kind of a monopoly, which is what we're against, isn't it? Let's go to the phones here. We got about a minute before the top of the hour. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, it's Drew.
Drew, what's happening, sir?
Hey, sir. Just before we got to hear Rick's words of wisdom there, you were discussing either or. Either we go ahead and cut the rates for the brick and mortars, or we put a bigger tax on the click and orders.
Well, that's been a lot of the arguments lately.
Well, but it's a buggy whip argument. It really is. It's a buggy whip argument. Back when automobiles came around, the buggy whip manufacturers protested because they were going out of business. I'm sorry. The way the market is running, click and order online marketing is increasing. And so what's the natural government response? What's the response of these anti-capitalists that
More
are
money
now in Washington? No. The response is, quick, let's slow that down.
More money. I agree, Drew. I appreciate it, my friend. It's a great point. Wrapping up hour number 3. We'll continue this conversation and more. Plus, the man himself, Phil Martinez from Phil's Coins, is going to join us. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech. You're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3, broadcasting live in the heart of the nation right here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along. It is a pre-Friday celebration. It is the Thursday before Easter. It is the day before the holiday weekend shall begin. Hopefully, you can actually enjoy maybe the day off Friday or the day off Monday or something when it comes to the holiday, the first major one for the first of the year, and I think we should enjoy that a little bit. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK, in studio with us, as we always do the last Thursday of the month, from Phil's Coins, 9344 West Central Avenue, Mr. Phil Martinez back with us. Phil, how are you, my friend?
I'm just fine, sir. How are you?
It is great to have you back in here. Happy Easter to you.
Same to you.
I cannot believe that we're already talking about Easter. This year has gone by way too fast.
It was just Easter last week, and here it is again.
And here it is all over again. Good golly. Any fun traditions you guys do? The big Easter thing? Do you guys look for the eggs? Now, see, I got to ask you this. This is kind of my fun tradition. Apparently, I'm in the minority to do this, but after we go around and look for the eggs, with the little kid and do the Easter egg hunt, then we have the dinner, and we have ham, but I tell her that we have cooked the Easter bunny. Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, do you not do that? No.
Actually, all of my grandchildren are almost in their 20s. So
well, you can try and play
hard.
That, yeah.
I guess maybe if I put a couple ears and a fuzzy bunny tail on, I could try to tell them we cooked these. This year, we're going to have Easter way late because everybody can't get together on when they're going to have it. So we're going to be about 3 weeks late.
Oh, well, yeah. You know what? As long as you get together, that's the main thing.
Yeah,
you do get to enjoy it. No, I like to have a little fun with it, with the bunny rabbit stew, and then of course for Christmas, you were able to get one of the reindeer, and you had the reindeer. Come on, I mean, it's fun. We gotta.
There's a mean side to you I didn't know existed.
There is a goal of a parent to somehow traumatize your children, and then once you get to high school, and it's one of those where they're getting out of the car to go to school, and you yell out the window, "I love you!" And then,
Lord.
you end up embarrassing them. It is your duty to traumatize your children.
To a certain degree, you're right.
That's right. Phil's Coins, 9344 West Central Avenue. The gold and silver markets, how have we been looking lately?
Oh, pretty stable. Up and down just a little bit here and there.
Yeah?
Hey, is this the guy that sells the Bitcoins?
Oh, no, we don't do
stuff.
no
That's
Bitcoin
right.
stuff.
That's right.
I'm smarter than that. Yeah.
That's a good question, actually, about the Bitcoins and with the markets. I mean, the markets have been fluctuating. We've been, every month that you come in, we've been talking about the nutso market that has been silver, where prices have been extremely low, but yet people have been selling more than buying for whatever reason. Is that still the case right now?
Yeah.
Still the case?
Right now we're...
or has it started to transition a little bit? Maybe.
Little bit, not much. We're not buying as much, where we were buying just tons of eagles and rounds. It's kind of backed off. Still quite a bit of junk silver being bought.
Okay.
Junk silver is buy of the century. I mean, it's right now. I figured junk silver yesterday for a guy at only 1675 or 1678. I mean, it was only like 20 cents or 30 cents over spot.
Sure.
Normally, junk silver at these markets should be running $22 an ounce. So, I mean, junk silver is extremely cheap right now. And but at the same time, now I did have a lady come in. God, I don't want to lie to anybody. I'm going to tell you, 3 months ago, 2 to 3 months ago, and was selling her silver. And I said, man, I don't understand why you're selling silver in these markets. And she wasn't going to buy Bitcoin, but she was going to buy some other fantasy coin out on the market that she'd done all this research on. Now, I had somebody come in the shop the other day, and now where they got their information, I don't know, but it was and I don't remember it was April 1st or May 1st. I think it was May 1st. They say the government's going to push a button, and all this Bitcoin stuff's going to disappear.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me.
And if you stop and think about it, I mean, Russia's against it. China's against it because their people can have money and wealth that they can't control. And I'm sorry, but our government is not going to let people be making money without paying taxes on it. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're buying product and not paying any tax because they're using Bitcoin to do it. So therefore, I can see the government pushing a button and all this Bitcoin just disappear.
For all these fantasy currencies that have been tried to come up over the last couple of decades and people trying to create their own little thing, Bitcoin's really been the one that gained the biggest amount of traction.
Yes. Yep.
But I still never grasped the concept of what value is behind it, and their only response was, well, whatever value we give it, and the fact that there's a limited amount, that means people have put a value to it, and therefore they're buying it up, but that still doesn't explain what value's behind it on what you can actually use it on.
One time you could have bought Bitcoin for 30 cents a piece.
Right.
Well, now I don't have any clue where they are right now. I'm going to tell you
$2,000, $2,500 a piece? Something like
I don't think that's high enough because I had a guy that had two and lost $7,500 in one day. So, I mean, there was predictions. I heard predictions that Bitcoin could go as high as $50,000 to $55,000 by end of next year. So, but at the same time, I told somebody, I said, if you buy the Bitcoin, unless you're going to buy something with, and there's precious metal places out there taking Bitcoin right now.
Sure.
So I'm sitting there going, well, man, I don't know how to compete with them because I'm not about to start this.
Well, it doesn't make any sense. Here's the thing. I mean, if you're going to create a currency to try and transition everybody onto, you need to make enough of it so that way it's at a reasonable price for the general market to actually accept. When there were 10 people on it, then you could get it for 30 cents a piece. Now the fact that there are maybe, let's say, 500,000 people, and it's already up to close to, let's say, $10,000.
Right.
You've already outpriced 80% of the entire population to actually buy into it while you're wanting it to increase.
Well, the only downside or what I see is the fact that you can actually buy a tenth of a Bitcoin. You don't have to buy the whole. There's guys out there buying half. I had a guy come in the shop and tell me, he says, you ought to be a distributor. You only have to own 2 Bitcoins to sell it. Mm-hmm. And then a week and a half later, he calls me up and he goes, yeah, I'm selling all my Bitcoins. I said, I just lost $7,500 in one day. And I'm going, Yeah.
Why would you
And
do
you're
that?
telling me I ought to be a distributor and I should have went out and bought 2 at the current price so that I could lose $7,500? I said, stop and think about this.
Pass.
But now they do tell me, and this is one reason I didn't get into Bitcoins. One, I don't understand it. 2, how would I ever convert it to something I could actually spend?
Right.
But they actually tell me there's 2, and I don't know this for a fact. I've just heard this, that there's 2 ATM machines in town that you can walk up and do all your transactions, and you can buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin. So you can sell it, and
On
the
an
machine
ATM.
kicks out money, or you put the money in and you can buy Bitcoin.
Wow. I've never heard that one. We had, and I guess it's been about 3-4 months now, but we had someone on that actually wrote a book explaining Bitcoin and was selling his book. And I said, how can we get your book? And he said, well, right now, the only way you can get the book is if you buy it with Bitcoin online. And that's the only way you can do this. And that was the argument, was that the fact that with Bitcoin, it was only going to be an online purchase currency. So all you could do is buy things online with it that accepted
Basically.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And to me, you're marginalizing your entire, it makes no sense to me. I don't get it. I don't like it.
I don't either. I know there's a lot of different coins. I was talking about this yesterday. Somebody was going, well, yeah, it isn't like we were trying to explain somebody back in the 20s and 30s that the government couldn't produce enough paper currency to keep up with the demand.
Sure.
So they allowed the banks to print their own currency.
Sure.
And they've got their under Federal Reserves and from towns and states, or from different places. But there's actually towns, especially back east, little small towns that have like really big banks. And the bank issues its own money, and basically it's only good in that town, but they trade this money back and forth all the time because they have more faith in the bank than they do the government.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I've heard there's several of those going on right today.
It's an interesting concept, the Bitcoin. I'm sure that we'll discuss that a little bit later as well. But with tangible items, with Phil's coins, you can buy the silver and the gold. As you said, the market's still kind of hovering around low prices for silver. What's gold looking like right now?
Gold was $13.32 or something like that.
So it's still hanging around the same. It's weird how it hasn't changed dramatically really over the last 6 months that we've been talking. It's kind of hovered over really around the same kind of prices for both silver and for gold.
From about $13.20 up to about $13.50, $60, $70, probably in a $50 range. Silver's been doing the same thing. By the time it gets up to about $16.70, it falls back to about $16.30. So it's traveling within a 40-cent range, pretty close. I don't know why. You'd think that with the long term, especially the elongated 6 months, 8 month time span, that we'd actually be able to see it go up a little bit. People start seeing, well, I bought the silver at $16. Now it's at $26 an ounce. We haven't seen a whole lot of change on that for a while, so you're going to have to ride it out a bit more. Well, you've got such manipulated markets. I mean, the big banks are outside the limits of the law, the banks that are too big to fail. Now, I've heard somebody was telling me that the new Secretary Treasurer is going to put this to a screeching halt, that he's going to force all the banks back within the limits of the law. Good. You've got, but Chase Stanley Morgan has 750 million ounces of physical silver, and they're still shorting the markets because what they're trying to do is short it because they can buy it cheaper. And China's buying, India's buying, Russia's buying. I mean, there's all kinds of people out there, countries out there buying it, and they have no problems with them shorting the markets to keep it down so that they can buy more of it at cheaper prices. But right now we're using it faster than we're mining it. And with the last articles I read, probably somewhere in the next 5 years, and our production goes down every year. Sure. Because it's not worth mining. But they say in the next 5 years, all the easily mined silver will be basically mined. Therefore, it'll take way more cost to mine it. So therefore, they will quit mining silver until the price of silver goes up. And if you listen to a lot of the experts, there's a lot of experts out there predicting you're going to see $60 to $100 silver this year, especially if they come in with this and make the big banks fall in line, because probably, I'm guessing, for every 5 short contracts they got, they're going to have to get rid of 4. Wow. And if they have to get rid of 4, that means they've got to go out and either buy it long on paper or they got to buy it physical. There is not enough physical silver out there because the government has a law that if you're going to buy silver, you can't go to Russia and buy it. You have to buy it here in the United States. And see, this is what pushed silver up to $48.50 and gold to $1,900 is when it went on the markets and it went to gold traded funds and silver traded funds, the government stepped in and said you have to have so many ounces of physical silver and so many ounces of physical gold, and they had to buy it here in the country. So this is what drove silver to, they both did it about the same time. This is what drove silver and gold in 1948.50. So if one of these banks falls and one of these banks has to come in and start buying, I mean, I'm sorry, but you could 48.50 could be a drop in the bucket.
Sure.
I mean, I really do believe that we could see $100 silver.
Wow. Well, if that is the case, then again, it's the urge of the fact that the price is so low right now. It's been low for a really long time. It's kind of the buying season right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had a late girl been coming in selling me $50.
Sure.
And she'd sell me $100, $200 at a time, and but I think it was part of an inheritance, and she needed the money. Now, what she needed the money for, I don't know. Maybe she had bills want to take care of. And yesterday, I was standing there, and this little young girl comes walking in, and she walks out with a bag, and I'm sitting there going, "Wait a minute." I says, "Wait a minute. Weren't you the one just selling me $50 6 weeks ago?" And she goes, "Yep." Mm-hmm. She said, "Got everything straightened out." And she says, "I finally got a little inheritance money."
Sure.
And so all of a sudden now I realize that this is an investment and there's money to be made in it. And now the girl that was 6 weeks ago was selling me silver is in the shop buying it back.
Sure.
And I'm sitting there going,
okay.
Yep. I mean, it is what it is.
It makes sense. Phil's Coins, Phil Martinez, 9344 at West Central Avenue. Let's go ahead and take a break. We got a few minutes left with him. When we come back, your phone calls as well. If you have any questions on buying gold and silver, buying, selling, trading, whatever you do with your gold and silver, stock up now, baby. It's that time. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Making it happen. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. 24 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, you're more than welcome to do so. Phil Martinez of Phil's Coins, 9344 West Central Avenue in Wichita. Here they are open today, starting at 9:30. And swing by there, check out some of the great goodies. I do have to ask you, though, as first off, you and your staff at Phil's Coins owns firearms. Carries firearms for protection.
You had to bring that up again.
So, well,
yeah.
I had to just reiterate that just for the fact that, of course, during this whole gun debate happening right now, I mean, come on. We see a bunch of high school students protesting and marching out and making their signs saying that we need to ban firearms because of weapons of war and how terrible these things are. Would you give up your guns in the store and say, yeah, okay, there's no one going to come in and try and cause harm to us?
Well, if I give up my guns, I'm more vulnerable in the bank. I have more money. Somebody robbed interest the other day and got $4,500 in cash. You can walk in and pick up one tray of gold and walk out with a hell of a lot more money than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all carry guns.
Well,
and it is,
and you should,
and it's not to shoot anybody. It's to make a statement that this is the wrong place to rob.
Well, let me ask you, because of the fact that you carry the firearms, have you been robbed before with someone saying, they're a vulnerable spot, we're going to go ahead and try and steal something?
I've had a couple people try to break in at night. During the day, no. But I did have three guys year and a half ago. Three guys are standing down in a corner, and I look down there, and they're looking around, and they're talking, they're looking around. They're casing the place.
Sure.
I mean, they're obviously casing the place.
Sure.
And I walked down a little ways, and I kind of raised my shirt up and stuck it under my gun and kind of stuck my hip at him. And I said, something I can do to help you boys. And he looked at me and saw the gun, said, no, sir, and left. Ain't been back.
Haven't been back.
So, okay, now, I didn't have to shoot anybody. I didn't have to take the gun out. But I know I saved myself they knew they were being watched. And that saved me from probably somebody trying to tear a hole in a wall or break a window.
Mm-hmm.
Last time they tried to rip my door off the hinges. They didn't get in the door, but they broke glass. Cost the landlord $3,200 to fix everything.
Oh my gosh!
So even though they didn't get in, they still cost the landlord $3,200.
Sure.
So yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. We carry the firearm so we don't have to use it.
Absolutely.
I know it's a crazy concept for a lot of individuals who want to take away the gun because, well, if you're not going to use it, then what's the point of having it? But that's the point. So you don't have to use it.
I mean, basically, the government, when Obama was in president, Started to say when we had our dictatorship.
Ah, well.
But anyway, when Obama was in power, the government did a 2-year study of what it would take to make the people in the United States safer. And they were expecting to come up to get rid of the guns. And after a 2-year study by the federal government, the answer was put more guns in the hands of capable people and the country will become safer.
Craziness, right?
So even the government, and there was not a whole lot to do about if it had been what they wanted to come out, it would have been all over the news. But it wasn't what they wanted to come out, so they buried it. But technically, just like you and I kind of talked a while ago, if Kansas passed a law where a school teacher can carry a gun, if no teachers in any school carry guns, but there's the threat that they could have a gun, I guarantee you somebody's a whole lot less apt to go into the school just on the possibility there may be a gun in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a sheriff in Texas that passed some little city ordinance that said that if you're in the county of such and such in Texas, you have to have a firearm in your home. Crime rate dropped 90%.
Crazy how that works.
Crazy
right?
how that works.
Crazy how that
So,
works.
yeah.
We got about a minute and a half left before we got to wrap up here. But right now, you mentioned with the markets right now, gold and silver, what would you recommend people look at purchasing with how the prices are? The
Doesn't matter what they
junk silver
purchase.
still, or just
I would still say junk silver is the buy, just because it's so cheap. But the experts. And I'm talking about the big experts, people that study this day in and day out, that write all these articles, that work for all these big hedge fund companies. They're saying silver is the buy of the century right now.
The buy of the century. Still.
And
you've been saying that for, good 4, 5, 6 months.
Yeah, and when the experts say something different, I'll be telling you something different. But, I mean, it's what I tell you today will be the same thing I tell you tomorrow unless something changes. And right now there hasn't been anything changed.
And junk silver still the same one. I still love, and I haven't been in a while, but I still love being able to go in and just get my silver round.
Yeah,
it just feels so good about that. Just my nice little 1 ounce silver round, and I feel awesome.
I had a guy come in the other day, works for the post office, and he said, I've never been able to save money, but we were talking about when you buy something, you kind of hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And in 3 years, he's put back 540 or 560 eagles.
Sure.
And 12 ounces in gold. And we kind of calculated out that he's managed to put back $25,000 in 3 years. And he said, and I've never been able to save more than $500 in my life. He said, I've done more in 3 years with precious metals than what I've been able to do with my whole life because I cannot save, because when I have the cash, I spend it.
That's what it is. Phil Martinez, Phil's Coins, 9344 West Central Avenue. Phil, happy Easter to you, my friend.
Happy Easter to you.
Great to talk to you. We'll talk to you again next month.
You take care, be safe, be blessed.
Always a great time. Let's take a bottom of the hour break. It's Open Lines to you, wrapping up the show today for the last half hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
The fastest growing radio show in Kansas.
What? How's he do that?
That's what I'm talking about.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Making it happen today. It's a Thursday. Welcome into it. Wrapping up the show today. We'd love to hear from you. It's Open Lines for the last half hour. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. Great conversations, great phone calls, great guests today. We thank all of them for joining the program on Facebook and on the air. A lot of great discussion happening on the Facebook Live today. We may touch on that a little bit again if we choose to do so. We don't have to, though. It's been kind of an interesting conversation on that. Easter is coming up around the corner. I know that we're going to have the protesters, the angry individuals. How dare you take off a religious holiday? Instead of just saying, hey, good for you. Good for you. If you complain about it, then you probably shouldn't take it off yourself, right? That's probably what we should be doing. 316-721-8255. I saw a story on The Hill, from The Hill, talking about how the GOP ponders how to fill the rest of the year. Republican leaders are mulling over what to do for the rest of the year after passing a $1.3 trillion omnibus spending bill. Legislative activity will slow down dramatically after the Easter recess as vulnerable incumbents seek to spend more time campaigning ahead of the fall midterm elections. Let me tell you exactly what you can do, and this is exactly the same story that we've been saying for how many weeks now? Exactly what we need to do is focus on appropriations. No, we don't want to see them doing bill after bill after bill after bill after bill and voting on stuff on the floors of both chambers for the next few weeks or for the next rest of the year. I don't want that. I do want to see a repeal of Obamacare. I do want to see another tax cut bill. I do want to see another not omnibus bill, but I want to see discussions when it comes to the appropriations. I want to see a bill when it comes to the national reciprocity. I want to see a lot of things be getting done, but at the same time, we need to focus on the appropriation spending bills. We need reforms. We need spending cuts. We need insane amounts of consolidation. We need to start weeding off some of the departments and agencies. We have a lot of work to do. And the fact that the legislature. Now, this reminds me of last year, if you remember, after the big tax cut from Trump, and then Mitch McConnell coming out saying, well, we did a really good, successful year. We did a lot of good things. What'd you do? Well, we repealed Obamacare and we did a tax cut. Or no, we nominated a Supreme Court justice and we did a tax cut with a little bit of the Obamacare stuff included into the tax cut for the repeal there. So we did really, really, really good. What would you like to see when it comes to the last few weeks of this, the last couple of months, really, for this fiscal year and going into the rest of this year for 2018 when it comes to this? Now, they are going to be campaigning. They're going to be going on the campaign trail, which, of course, they're not going to be in Washington, D.C. for a heck of a lot more time. But doesn't that really show, again, the priorities they have of getting reelected as opposed to doing the right thing? We need to focus on this. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I will be attending the governor's debate at the Wichita Area Builders Association, the Republican candidates, and I believe Governor Jeff Collier will be there as well, but it's going to be a packed house. If you have not reserved your seat, try and do so. Reach out to the Wichita Area Builders Association, and then you can try and get your seat if there are any seats left. I know it's going to be a jam-packed night tonight, but if you're watching TV or if you're watching Facebook Live, the reason I'm all dressed up in the suit today is because I will be attending that. I am looking forward to it very much so, as now is the time. We're months away from the primary. We're months away from the election time. We're months away from us deciding what this state's really going to look like in the next coming years. And now is the time for us to really start harping on big time on what the platforms are of the candidates. Now, this is for the Republican side. It's not a bipartisan thing with the Republicans and Democrats going at it. This is a primary debate for the Republicans. Or I don't know if it's going to be a debate style, if it's going to be an open, just an open public forum discussion to ask questions, or what it's going to look like. But I'm really excited to see what they have to say tonight. This is the time. There's still the latest poll that we did see, even though Chris Kobach was up with 31% of the support, we're still seeing 36%, according to that poll, undecided, which means that it's still anybody's game. And Ken Selter has a huge opportunity to try and really make some traction and really make some gains if he's, when he steps up his game. Jim Barnett, although he's been kind of left out from the establishment, quote unquote, he says fighting the establishment side of the Republican aisle and trying to do his own thing. Now is his chance to really make his voice heard. I think that he did some damage to himself personally when he did not attend the last Republican debate. So if you are going to attend, I'd love to hear from you. If you're not, what questions would you like to be heard or answered at the debate tonight? 316-721-8255. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll do a recap on the show tomorrow as well as we get to talk to and hear from all of the candidates there. And it's from what I understand, it is going to be Chris Kobach. It is going to be Ken Selter. It is going to be Jim Barnett. All the candidates left for the Republican side that will be joining the Wichita Area Builders Association debate tonight. 316-721-8255. Yesterday, Rick made a statement with one of his local news reports when it came to the number of refugees that were leaving, that were not coming to the state, and how the number of refugees that were coming in on a yearly basis have been dropping dramatically, especially under Donald Trump, which is no surprise. And I made just a quick reference of the fact that Donald Trump, or that Governor Sam Brownback, along with a bunch of other governors at the time, had signed a petition saying that they were no longer going to accept refugees from certain areas of the world to come into the state, because we wanted to make sure that the proper vetting process was actually done. We wanted to make sure that the process was being done appropriately to make sure that who was coming into the state was coming in with good intentions. And not that we've had necessarily any issues as of late, but we want to make sure and continue to make sure. We heard about the case of the refugee from Louisiana with Bobby Jindal's area, to where they went down there and then they ended up just disappearing. We didn't know where they went. They just disappeared. They went off and they actually left the state and went somewhere else, and they had to track them down, bring them back into the state, and then they had to reallocate where they were and what they were doing. And we need to have a process, which is, again, the inefficiencies of the government. There's really no changing that. But we need to work on the process of government. And we need to really focus on what the priorities are of who's going to come into the country and for what purpose. I know that we have a lot of humanitarian mindsets of just we need to bring people in that are suffering around the world, and that's a great idea to have. But do we need to bring them in just for the humanitarian aspect of we need to bring them in to take care of them, or should we be doing it to help them, but also with our own interest in mind as the United States? If you're going to come into the country, if you're going to come into the state, if you're going to come into the community, are you going to be a contributing member to society? And during the St. Patrick's Day special that we always do, we talked about the process of Ellis Island and the rigorous process where, by the way, they didn't care if your family was torn apart in any way, shape, or they didn't care about it. If your kids were fine, then you know what? They could stay here if they had someone to stay with. If you were sick or if you were a pregnant mom and you were trying to come here, you had a medical issue, you would not be really a productive member of society. They didn't care for that too much. They put you back on the boat and off you went. And the rest of your family could stay. But guess what? That pregnant mom, if you weren't going to be contributing or if you were going to be pregnant and maybe had some medical issues that you may have to attain to with being pregnant, then you probably went back on the other way. Wasn't very often, but it happened. They didn't care whether the family was broken up. The story that I saw from the Kansas City Star, U.S. policy leads to astounding drop of number in refugees in KC and pulls families apart. Pulling families apart because now no longer is our interest in mind when we bring someone here to say, you know what, welcome aboard. You're now part of the United States. You're now living in the United States. The streets are paved with gold. You have more opportunity here than any other place on the face of the earth. Now you need to do something to contribute to that. No longer are we talking about that. Now we're talking about, oh, hey, we're humanitarians. We just want to bring in as many people as we possibly can. We want to open the floodgates, let everybody just waltz right into the country, regardless of their intentions, regardless of their attributes, regardless of what their educational level may be, regardless of what they can actually do to contribute to our communities. Just let them waltz on in, and then we just take care of them. There's a big, vast difference there, isn't there? Between that mindset and saying, yeah, we want to help you, but we got to make sure that you're going to do something good for us too. Because when it all comes down to it, we need to take care of our nation. Even on the progressive side of the aisle now, we're starting to hear individuals say, why are we getting involved in foreign affairs and from wars abroad when we can't even take care of our own here at home? And that's a good point. So why are we advocating for more people to come here that we need to take care of that causes us more into a financial ruin, and it's unsustainable with more people being dependent on the government and on social programs than actually focusing on taking care of ourselves? We need to look at, and I know it's a quote-unquote selfish way to look at it, but as a nation, in order for the nation to be healthy, in order for you and I to prosper and for you and I to actually do something productive, we need to look at the nation first. As a state of Kansas, we need to look at the state of Kansas first. What jobs are available in the state of Kansas? What industries are available in the state of Kansas? What opportunities are available in the state of Kansas? And then we can hopefully get people to migrate here on their own, and then whatever's left over, then we can look at outside forces and outside options to bring people in to be able to fill those voids, right? That's really what we're all about. That's what we have to do. Agriculture is a huge one, and it comes to the discussion of the illegal immigration where, we need the illegal immigrant to help us out on the farm. Okay. What if we have more individuals of young students that actually want to come here learning about agriculture? Because the average age of a farmer nowadays nationally is like 50, 55 years old. What happens when they finally retire or they can't work on the farm the way they need to? And nothing against you if you're that age, but I mean, we need to look at the young generation to be able to come up and out of that. And we have great programs with 4-H. We have great programs with the FFA. We have great programs through the different colleges and universities around the area to teach agriculture. And we have a lot of students wanting to do that, which is fantastic. How many of them want to stay in the state of Kansas? And why are we seeing the massive, large number of young students leave after university to go to other states and go to other places? And what are we going to do to keep them? We can't sustain ourselves that way. We can't sustain a state that way. We can't sustain a community that way. We have to grow, and we have to do it with our own as well. In our own, not meaning evil white supremacist, white privileged individuals. Our own is in Kansans, American citizens, and then whatever voids that we can fill that's going to benefit the state and benefit the community and benefit the nation, that's when we start looking at bringing people in, whether they're refugees, whether they're on work visas, student visas, doesn't matter. That's when we start looking at that. But yeah, since President Donald Trump, the number of refugees coming into the nation has dropped at 77%, a massive number. And then all we hear about is the fact that we're tearing families apart because some of the family got in, the other parts of the family have not been able to get in. And terrible Republicans, terrible conservatives, terrible Trump for actually not uniting families because we are the evil, terrible family terror aparters as the United States. And that's all the media will ever report. 316-721-8255. Let's take a phone call, shall we? Caller number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. It's Pam.
Oh, good morning, Pam. How are you today?
Well, I wasn't actually calling about your subject. I had something. I hadn't been able to listen to you all morning, and I didn't know if you had mentioned that it's National Vietnam Veterans Day.
I briefly mentioned it earlier, but I have not focused on that. You're right. It is National Vietnam Veterans Day, and I'm so glad you did bring that up because I do want to give that appropriate attention.
Well, I have a friend that runs the Kansas Honor Flight, Colonel Herb Duncan.
Okay.
And they are having a honoring of these Vietnam veterans downtown at the Veterans Memorial Park at 5 o'clock, and from 5 to 6, and then at the American Legion post at 816 North Water.
Very
They're
good.
going to have kind of a meet and greet and visiting session. But if you need more information and make sure my information's correct, it's at kansashonorflight.org.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm so glad and you know what? Maybe I didn't even bring it up. I had the intention to bring it up today, but now that I think about it, I don't know if I even mentioned it live on the air, but I'm so glad you did because we get so tied up in the issue sometimes that we forget a lot about the remembrances and the days to be able to celebrate and commemorate certain things, and that's a great way to do so. So thank you for bringing that up.
You know, 2/3 of our Vietnam veterans are gone.
Sure.
There's only 1/3 of them left. This was my generation. And when these guys came home, believe me, they got cans and you name it thrown at them.
Oh,
and
sure.
They were dishonored. And
you know what? Here's the question. Will history teach the youth, the young generations, the ones that never experienced it or never saw it before, will history teach the right history about Vietnam or even before that? What about World War II or World War I without? I mean, now we're even seeing people say that Hitler wasn't actually that bad of a guy and never actually committed a genocide of 6 million plus Jewish individuals.
Right.
So, and then you have the individuals that actually lived through it that are still here saying, hello, we actually went through this. So will history teach Vietnam and even the Korean conflict the way that it needs to be taught? And you're right, with very few people actually coming back from that and still living to tell about it, will that story be told the right way?
Well, and another thing, these honor flights, they have been for the World War II veterans and the Korean veterans. Just a few years back, they started having them for the Vietnam veterans. So any of the folks out there that are a Vietnam veteran, these honor flights that you take a sponsor and go to Washington, D.C. and get a major tour. And then when you come home, you're allowed the greeting that you should have got when you came home from Nam.
Sure.
And it's really a cool thing.
That is. It's really good. Pam, thank you so much for bringing that to my
Thanks,
attention because
Andy.
I'm so glad that we are remembering that and we need to focus on something like that. So I appreciate that very much. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Listener on Facebook, do you know any news covering the state reps who voted to remove the Eddie Eagle program from the schools? Yes, it is on the Voice of Reason Facebook page and my personal as well. I'll repost it and I'll share that as well. But we did cover that yesterday with out of the 49 individuals voting to remove the Eddie Eagle program, 13 of them or 15 of them being Republicans, almost 1/3 of that vote being Republicans voting to remove the Eddie Eagle program. And we'll repost that on there as well. So, yes, there is that move to try and remove the Eddie Eagle program out of there. Now, that did get shot down. Thankfully, that did not go anywhere. And now we're actually seeing a positive bill come out where they're talking about removing the ban, saying that you're not allowed to carry a firearm as a teacher on school grounds. So that way we give the option, because we're all about option, right? We're all about choice, right? Progressives, we're about the choice to choose whether you choose to carry a firearm or not. That legislation being discussed as we speak, with the Eddie Eagle program still in the same bill as well. So good news on that front as we're moving forward there in a positive direction. Take one more break. We'll pick up the last couple calls if you want to. 8 minutes at the top of the hour. 316-721-8255. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
It's going to be a busy night. Stay tuned in. One more night, I'm filling in for Armed American Radio with the great Mark Walters. He's off for another day. I'll be filling in for that seat tonight. Also, the big governor's debate on the Republican side at the Wichita Area Builder Association tonight. That one starts at 6 p.m. Get ready for that one. Armed American Radio going to be tonight at 8 p.m. It's delayed taped. We actually recorded a little bit earlier than that, but it will air on KQAM at 8 p.m. tonight, so don't miss that. So it's going to be a busy night for moi. It'll be a lot of fun. As always, we try to enjoy the best that we know how to, advancing conservatism any way that we know how, and the fact that we have representation, that we have a voice here in our very own community is the most important thing that we can possibly have. You, the voter, you going to work right now, you starting your day, you trying to get through the day and trying to look towards the holiday coming up this weekend. That's what it's all about, my friends. As always, we love you, appreciate you very much. Thank you so much for listening into the program every day and doing what you do. We love the discussion. Even when you disagree with me, it's okay. I love you too. That's all right. You can call me a jerk. That's cool. We still appreciate it. This is your show as always. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason. Have a great Thursday, everybody.